Look at that. Get down there and clean it properly. I want that rug spotless.
Pierce Caldwell thought he could break his new maid by forcing her onto her knees to clean up his mess. He had no idea her father was Conrad Blackwood, the most powerful trillionaire on Earth, who could crush the Caldwell empire with a single phone call. Pierce thought he was teaching a servant her place, but he was actually signing his family's financial death warrant. Why was the daughter of a secret trillionaire cleaning the floors of a cruel heir? And what happens when Pierce pushes her too far, forcing her to clean a ruined rug on her knees? Stay tuned until the very end of this story to find out the shocking revenge. The twist will leave you completely breathless. Before we continue, please take a brief moment to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us bring you more incredible stories every single day. Also, turn on the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Now, we want to know more about you. Where are you watching this video from today? Drop your city or country in the comment section below. We read every single comment. Now, let us dive back into the story. The grand dining room of the Caldwell Manor was silent. At the head of the table sat Pierce. Standing near the wall was Mrs. Weaver, the head housekeeper. She was an elderly woman who had worked for the family for 30 years. Her hands were shaking slightly. "Is the new girl here?" Pierce asked. His voice was cold and sharp. "Yes, Mr. Pierce," Mrs. Weaver replied quickly. "Her name is Hazel. She is currently cleaning the West Wing." Pierce wiped his mouth with a silk napkin. "Send her to my study in 10 minutes. Hazel walked down the long, carpeted hallways. She stopped in front of the massive double doors of Pierce's study. She knocked twice and stepped inside. Pierce was sitting behind the desk. Finally, Pierce raised his head. He scanned Hazel from head to toe. He noticed her posture. She was standing straight. Her shoulders were back. "You are Hazel?" Pierce asked, narrowing his eyes. "Yes, I am," she replied. Pierce frowned. "Yes, sir. When you speak to me, you add sir at the end. Did Mrs. Weaver not teach you manners?" Hazel kept her expression neutral. "Yes, sir." Pierce walked around his desk. He stopped just a few inches away from her. He was trying to intimidate her, but Hazel just looked at him. Her eyes were like a calm ocean. "I don't like your attitude," Pierce whispered. "Your job is whatever I say it is. Remember that." He picked up a glass of red wine. Then, with a sudden movement, he tilted his hand. The dark red wine poured out of the glass. It splashed all over the expensive white Persian rug in the center of the room. A large, ugly stain began to spread across the fabric. "Oh, look at that," Pierce said mockingly. "I made a mess. Clean it up." "I will fetch the cleaning supplies," Hazel said, turning toward the door. "No," Pierce snapped. "There is a cloth on the side table. Use that." Hazel walked over to the side table. She picked up the small cloth. She walked back to the center of the room. She bent down to tend to the stain. "Stop," Pierce commanded. Hazel paused. She looked up at him. "Bending down is too easy," Pierce said, his eyes gleaming with malice. "Get on your knees. Clean it on your knees. That is how a servant should work." The room became deathly quiet. For the first time, a small flash of disgust passed through Hazel's eyes. She looked at Pierce, standing there in his expensive suit, looking down at her like a tyrant. "Is there a problem?" Pierce asked. "If you don't like the rules here, you can leave. But I will make sure you never find a job in this city again." Hazel took a deep breath. She reminded herself of her mission. She could not let this arrogant boy ruin it. Slowly, Hazel lowered herself. Her knees touched the hard floor. She placed a cloth onto the red wine stain and began to dab it. Pierce laughed loudly. He felt a rush of pure satisfaction. "Good girl," Pierce sneered. "Make sure you get every drop." He walked out of the study, slamming the door. Hazel remained on her knees. She pulled out a small, highly secure smartphone. She dialed a number. The call was answered on the first ring. "My lady," a deep voice spoke. "Is everything all right?" "No, Marcus," Hazel said, her voice dropping its soft maid persona. It was now sharp and authoritative. "Everything is going according to plan. The heir of the Caldwell family is exactly what we expected. He is arrogant and cruel. He made you clean on your knees, didn't he? Marcus asked angrily. We can destroy his family's business by noon, Hazel. Your father would be furious. My father gave me this assignment to test my patience, Hazel replied calmly, and to see if the Caldwell family is worth investing in. The answer is clearly no. Do not tell my father yet. Let me handle this. As you wish, Miss Blackwood. One word from you, and the Caldwells will lose everything. Yes, Hazel's real name was Hazel Blackwood. Her father was Conrad Blackwood, the richest and most powerful tech mogul in the world. Conrad was a man of discipline. Before handing over the family empire to Hazel, he gave her a challenge. She had to live as an ordinary person for 3 months to understand the value of hard work. Hazel had chosen the Caldwell Manor because her father was considering a massive multi-billion-dollar partnership with them. Pierce's father, Richard Caldwell, had been begging Conrad Blackwood for a meeting for months. The Caldwell empire was struggling financially. They needed the Blackwood money to survive. Over the next 2 weeks, Pierce made it his personal mission to torture Hazel. He would purposely track mud across the clean floors. He would throw his clothes on the floor and demand she wash them by hand. That evening, the Caldwell Manor was filled with the sound of loud music and laughter. Pierce's friends were all wealthy, entitled young people. Hazel dressed in a neat server's uniform. She carried a silver tray loaded with champagne glasses. Pierce was standing in the center of the room with his friends. Hey, Pierce, one friend said, pointing at Hazel. Is that the new maid? The one with the attitude? Yeah, Pierce said. Watch this. I'll show you how I broke her. Pierce called out loudly. Hazel, come here. Hazel walked over, holding the tray of champagne. Yes, sir. My friend here thinks you look too proud for a maid, Pierce said mockingly. He suddenly reached out and bumped Hazel's arm hard. The silver tray tilted. The expensive champagne glasses crashed onto the marble floor, shattering into hundreds of sharp pieces. Liquid splashed everywhere, soaking Pierce's expensive shoes. The music stopped. The entire room went silent. Look what you did. Pierce shouted, pretending to be furious. You clumsy idiot. Get down on your knees and clean this up right now. Sir, there is broken glass here, Hazel said calmly. It is not safe to clean this with bare hands. I don't care about safety. Pierce roared. Get on your knees and clean it now. Use your hands. Hazel stood there for a long moment. She saw a pathetic, insecure boy. She realized she had seen enough. The inspection was over. No, Hazel said. The word was quiet, but it sounded like a thunderclap. Pierce blinked, shocked. What did you say? I said no, Hazel repeated. I will not get on my knees, and I will not clean this up. I am done. You are fired. Pierce screamed. Get out of my house. I am leaving, Hazel said softly. But remember this moment, Pierce, because very soon, you will be the one on your knees. Hazel walked out of the Caldwell Manor and pulled out her secure phone. Marcus, she said, execute phase 1. Destroy the Caldwell family's credit lines. Pull out all our hidden investments. And tell my father I want to see him. The next morning, Pierce was woken up by a loud banging on his bedroom door. His father, Richard Caldwell, was standing there. Richard looked terrible. His face was pale, and his hands were shaking violently. We are ruined, Pierce, Richard whispered. 2 hours ago, our main bank froze all our corporate accounts. They called in our loans. All $50 million. Pierce's heart skipped a beat. How is that possible? Because someone powerful ordered them to. Richard cried out. The investors for our new high-rise project just pulled out. We are bleeding money. If we don't find a massive investor by the end of the day, we will lose everything. Pierce felt a cold sweat break out. What about Conrad Blackwood? You said he was considering a partnership with us. Richard let out a desperate laugh. That was our only hope. Conrad Blackwood is in the city. He has agreed to meet us at his private estate in 1 hour. You need to come with me. You need to be humble. You need to beg if you have to. An hour later, Richard and Pierce were escorted inside the grand conference room of the Blackwood estate. Sitting at the end of the table was Conrad Blackwood, Mr. Blackwood, Richard said, his voice trembling. Thank you for seeing us. This is my son, Pierce. If your firm could provide a loan, we can stabilize our operations. Conrad Blackwood leaned back in his chair. The bank did not freeze your accounts by accident. I ordered them to do it. I bought those investment firms yesterday morning and ordered them to cancel the contracts. Pierce and Richard froze. But why? Richard stammered. I don't partner with vipers. Conrad Blackwood said coldly. And I certainly don't invest in families that breed monsters. Conrad looked directly at Pierce. You think because you have money, you can treat people like animals. Let me refresh your memory. Come in, my dear. The side door opened. A young woman walked into the room. She was wearing a stunning, elegant emerald green silk dress. She wore a diamond necklace. She walked with absolute confidence. Pierce's breath caught in his throat. His jaw dropped. It was Hazel, the maid. Hazel, Pierce whispered in absolute horror. No, this is impossible. Richard, Conrad said, his voice icy. Allow me to introduce my daughter, Hazel Blackwood, the sole heiress to the Blackwood Empire. Richard Caldwell felt his heart stop. He looked at Pierce with wild fury. Pierce, what did you do to her? Pierce could not speak. His brain had stopped working. 2 weeks ago, I entered your home as a secret inspector, Hazel explained calmly. My father wanted to see if the Caldwell family was a safe investment. So I became a maid. And you showed me exactly who you are, Pierce. You are a bully. You made me clean on my knees. You broke glass at my feet and demanded I pick it up with my bare hands. Richard turned to his son. You fool. You ruined us. Richard fell out of his chair. He dropped to his knees right there in front of Hazel. Miss Blackwood, please, I beg you, don't punish my entire company for his stupidity. Have mercy. Pierce realized his only hope was to beg. He scrambled out of his chair and dropped to his knees next to his father. He looked up at Hazel, his face wet with tears. Hazel, Miss Blackwood, I am sorry. Pierce sobbed. I was a fool. Please don't do this. I will do anything. Just please save our company. Pierce, the proud heir, was now crying and begging at the feet of the girl he had tried to break. Hazel looked down at him. Do you remember what I told you last night, Pierce? I told you that very soon you would be the one on your knees. It seems I was right. Please, Pierce whispered. My decision is final, Hazel said, standing up. We will not invest a single penny. The banks will proceed with the foreclosure. By next week, your manor will be sold. You will have to learn what it is like to live as a regular person. Conrad Blackwood looked at the security guards. Show these gentlemen out. No, please. Pierce screamed as the guards grabbed him by the arms. They dragged him out of the conference room. His empire was gone. His future was destroyed. A month later, the Caldwell family was completely bankrupt. The Grand Manor was sold. Pierce and his father had to move into a tiny, cramped apartment in the poorest part of the city. Pierce had to get a job. Because he had no skills and a terrible reputation, no office would hire him. He was finally hired as a janitor at a local shopping mall. Every day, Pierce wore a simple, cheap uniform. He held a mop and a bucket. He spent his hours cleaning the dirty floors of the mall. Sometimes, people would drop food or spill drinks right in front of him. Some teenagers would laugh and track mud across his freshly mopped floors. Every time it happened, Pierce felt a sharp pain in his chest. He remembered Hazel. He remembered how he had treated her. He finally understood the pain and the humiliation of the people who served. He had learned his lesson, but the price had been his entire life. One afternoon, Hazel Blackwood was walking through the city center on her way to a charity event. As she walked past a coffee shop, she saw a young man through the window. He was wiping down the tables. It was Pierce. Hazel stopped for a moment. She watched him work. He was cleaning carefully, making sure every spot was spotless. He didn't look angry anymore. He just looked tired and humble. Marcus noticed her gaze. Do you want me to have him removed from the area, Miss Blackwood? No, Marcus, Hazel said, a gentle smile appearing on her face. Leave him. He is finally learning how to be human. Hazel turned away and walked into the bright future ahead of her. She had proven that true power does not come from wealth or status. It comes from kindness, respect, and integrity. And those who abuse their power will always, eventually, be brought to their knees.